Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about this growing potential for a very significant and potentially historic winter storm. Now I know I just made a video about a legendary snowstorm that occurred across the Northeast, and I also used pretty robust vocabulary, if you will, monster, enormous, historic, and I think it was well warranted. Boston saw many records being broken. All along the eastern seaboard, the blizzard was it was historic. It went down into history as a massive storm. Now, I won't call this one historic or anything of that sort, but I do want to drive the message home right now. If you're watching this video, that this system is potentially going to be a nightmare for many folks, and it's going to be very impactful and significant. Now, I'm not here to create panic, fearmonger of any kind. I'm just here to let you guys know so you can start preparing, and you will see that what I say will start aligning with what all other weather sources that you watch probably say as well, because frankly, if you look at this thing and it's Snow Track, any media organization, any weather channel, any whatever, will tell you to prepare, because it's always better to be prepared than not, right? Even if it doesn't end up coming and fulfilling its danger or what's not. Now, before I do get into this, I do want to quickly say that I am not an official weather source. So you may be wondering, okay, why do I do this? For me, it's fun. I know for some of you, you may think, that this is a job and I do this to solely inform people. And I do that to inform people, but I also just enjoy doing this. So it's a double win for me and others. So, you could subscribe and like the video towards the end of the video if you do end up enjoying it. I'm saying this now because I always forget at the end to say that. But if you have any comments about the storm, leave them. Yesterday I got a bunch and I answered most of them. So please feel free to do that. Sorry about that. Let's start talking about this massive beast. As again, this thing is something that could be the first good solid winter storm, or big, beast for a good portion of the United States in the past few years, if not more than just a few years. So yeah, this thing is definitely something we have to be careful for. So first off, you may be watching this and okay, there's a big storm. When, where, how? And that's all the details I want to go over. And I will be getting into some technical analysis, maybe a bit more in depth than some people would like. But that's why watching most of this video will give you a very good view of what's to come, and probably more than just watching a 3-minute weather clip, even though that probably is more convenient. In order to give a large amount of detail, I have to show you the evidence first and not just make blatant claims. So let's start talking about this. Notice, right now, there aren't any watches or advisories in the area of the United States that is super concerning. We do have some high wind warnings and a bit of a winter storm watch across portions of the North Dakota and Minnesota area. That is not where this beast will be occurring. That is just a high wind threat combined with a bit of snow that is prompting these winter storm watches again. Sorry about that. There you can see that the snowfall isn't particularly high, but it's definitely something to watch for, and it's more of the winds that are extremely concerning with this threat. So you can see that they mentioned a blizzard possible here. So if you live across this portion of the country, please stay safe. This will be occurring today, Monday and into Monday night. By Tuesday, you'll be fine. So if you're wondering where this thing will be occurring, let me outline a few states anywhere that kind of in this red line that you should be at least weather watched, right? I'm not, again, if you're in this area, don't start panicking, but here is the area kind of greatest concern for wintry weather. Now I say wintry weather because there will be other areas that are impacted by other forms of precip. Now again, this is huge area, and that is because of the uncertainty, not because of not because of the snow that will be impacting this large of an area. Probably won't be, because we just don't know exactly where it will be. If it's further to the south, then it could stretch into Kentucky, Ohio, right here, and into Canada, right there. So this is probably the most probable area that could see some heavy winter precip. Now again, if it's more towards the north of northern side of this blob that I drew, then the southern areas won't get as impacted, and vice versa. So yes, you could see large metros, and of course, even if you are on the southern side of this, you're not exempt from the from the impacts of the storm. They just won't be winter impacts. It will be heavy rain, potentially severe weather, and I guess nice temperatures, warm weather. So I guess that's a good side. But behind the system, very cold air is going to be rushing and affecting a lot of people. So that is the where. So if you live across the eastern seaboard, you will probably get impacted by some snow, except it's not anything that's legendary. In fact, you'll probably the bigger concern is the melting of the snow that has already fallen. I guess contributing to potentially a flood threat. There could be little bit of snow on the backside with certain models showing some threat. The south, again, more of a rain, severe weather threat. I'll show you what you guys can expect. To the north, again, this system will mainly stay south of you, and the west, again, I'll go over this winter weather advisory stuff going on up there right now. Let's go to the let's go to the weather models, and I want to show you what individual models think will be occurring. So first off, again, we don't have anything significant going on right now. We do have those winter storm watches, and that is because today already, by the time I record this video and upload it, it will be probably already occurring. We have a good, decent amount of energy that will contribute to this big system, but right now it's only affecting the northwest, Seattle, Oregon with a bit of rain and snow, the Cascades, British Columbia, Alberta, Canada. All these provinces and Canadian provinces and U.S. states are going to be under some light to moderate snow depending on the exact location. Notice we do have a bit of snow that is actually pretty decent in terms of intensity across Saskatchewan and the prairies of Saskatchewan and Manitoba, right? And do note that, again, that's where that winter or that blizzard could be occurring. There could be some very strong winds, and probably the models are underestimating some of the strength of this wind. So now, while that is occurring, and it brings a decent amount of precip across the northwest, if you live across Seattle, Oregon, right, Oregon State, Seattle's a city, but Oregon, or Seattle, Portland, Eugene, wherever, Boise, all of those cities across these regions, you'll be pretty much out of this system by the time it's Tuesday morning. There will be some additional weather, but that's pretty much it for this big system for you. It won't be that big. Do note, though, this low pressure is very high to the north, or far to the north. What this means is that it's able to drop a lot of warm air relatively far to the north. That means, for example, Chicago, southern Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, areas and places that could be seeing a lot of snow later on this week, could be in the 40s, if not even 50s. So this is going to be, I guess, the best way to describe it, the calm before the storm. And it's going to be perfect weather for, I guess, preparing. Again, don't prepare for a doomsday disaster. Just getting the shovels out if you haven't, getting the snowblower dusted off, things like that, and be reasonably prepared for a system like this. Notice, this thing doesn't really have a cold front. Most low pressures have cold fronts, and the thing is that it does have the energy associated with it. There's just no really precip hugging it, but it does start developing right there. Notice, it's starting to show signs. However, there's a lot of more ingredients in play here. We see the piece of energy across the Colorado Rockies that's eager to get into motion. We have a lot of Gulf of Mexico moisture, and this cold front at this point starts to stall out, but it manages to be strong enough and garner enough precip to be supported for it. So basically what this means is this system skedaddles out of here, but its cold front remains. And look, by Tuesday late at night, in the evening / late at night, we start seeing those rain showers that we saw on Tuesday transvert into a heavier, steadier rain. And also on the northern side, for cities like Kansas City, potentially St. Louis, more of a heavy snow event. Now again, the exact positioning of this is a bit unknown. You could see this model, European model, shows it across central Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, and eventually it sags it further towards the northeast and south. Notice, it does explode into a very potent band of heavy snow across Indiana, Michigan, Missouri. Some models keep this a bit further north, some a bit further south, and that's again something we still have to decide on whether or not, decide, I guess, see what the models agree on. And I'll tell you just a few things, a few trends that have been occurring. So if you saw yesterday's video on this weather channel, and there's a pretty good chance you might have, and basically we were discussing how the GFS, which isn't this model, had a scenario more towards the north with this cold front, and the European had a scenario that was more towards the south. So 24 hours later, pretty much have passed 24 hours. And now we know that the GFS has trended more towards the European in terms of the southern track of the system. It's a bit more further towards the south. And I'll show you that in just a second, actually. I'll show you that right now. This is a different model. It's a very good source of weather as well. You always have to look at many models, not just one. It's kind of looking at news sources. You always want to look at several different ones, not just one. And notice, right there, it's in pretty good agreement with the European. You may think, okay, there's not that much disagreement. And there really isn't for a system that's relatively still far out and so complex. Might be a bit further towards the north than what the European shows, but nothing compared to yesterday. However, yesterday the European was showing a swath of snow that was much more broad, extending for around 300 to 400, if not 500 miles, versus the GFS and the Canadian that were showing a snowband that was much more narrow but intense. And in that side, or in that terms, the European has trended towards the GFS. So there wasn't really one model that was more accurate than the other one. If you're just to take a look at the track, yes, the European was a bit more accurate, but in terms of the structure of the storm, the GFS has certainly started to kind of, with the Canadian, win that battle. So let me show you the rest of the European, because this already looks impactful, right? You can see Wednesday, it's snowing across Detroit, northern Indiana. If you're in central Indiana, Indianapolis, right, Oklahoma City, you may be thinking you're missing out on this. Hold on, because this thing, while it's bringing pretty good rain across the south, again, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Dallas, right? It starts strengthening and we see a resurgence of moisture, and this thing starts lifting off with another surge of moisture into early Thursday. Now again, for my Canadians, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec, this thing is going to be also most likely producing snow for you, just at a bit of a lighter rate. But you know, as early as late Wednesday this could begin, and it will continue for a few days. It's not going to be a quick system. Notice we start seeing this intensify into very heavy rain, potentially against severe weather, a good icing threat. That by itself is very concerning. The icing threat, as ice is probably the worst type of precipitation. You're gonna notice we could get a little bit of lake effect off Lake Michigan there, and we see this rain snow line shifting towards the south gradually. And look, we see that in low pressure intensifying. It's at 1009. Pretty much a weak one, right? It could easily be just a clipper attached to such a weak low pressure, but it's working with a lot of moisture, so it doesn't need to be strong in order to be impactful. And look, Oklahoma City gets in on some snow. Again, we shift this towards Canada now. You can see the Canadian cities and extreme northern New England get in on some heavy snow. Again, whether or not this is exactly like the European is showing, probably not. And unfortunately, that's the doubt that we have to work with. It always causes confusion and whatnot. And then you can see that by Friday, or late or early in the day, it's still affecting the Northeast, but by the time evening comes, it's pretty much out of here. Notice that the Northeast, where a lot of that snow fell, it's mainly a rain event for you, and then followed by more cold air. So it will melt, just hopefully not enough to cause a big flood threat. Now, let's take a look at the total snowfall, because it might be a bit hard for some to picture how much snow you may be getting. And I want to say that this is assuming a 10 to 1 ratio. So this basically is assuming that 1 inch of water is equal to 10 inches of snow. And while that may not be accurate for some of these areas, especially on the northern side, because the colder the temperatures are, say you have temperatures in the 20s, snow that falls may equal 20 inches of snow to 1 inch of rain. So it's not that the ratios are going to change the amount of precip that falls. It's just how, I guess, fluffy the snow will be. If you have a very wet snow, you know, those flakes are, that's why one shovelful of very wet, heavy snow is extremely heavy, while fluffy snow, not so much. And again, if you were to get 2 inches of heavy, wet snow, in order to make that equal in terms of precip for fluffy snow, that would have to be around 8 or 9. So again, this may be a bit deceiving, and I can't put on the Kuchera, which estimates more accurately because it's not an option for this weather model, but I'll show you it with the other models. Notice this would produce a very large event for even Oklahoma City. Look at that, 7 inches. Texas Panhandle, especially the northern areas, several inches. This doesn't show the ice, which could be by itself a crippling event for areas just south of the snow band. Do note that there's a lot of cities on the border between heavy and light snow. Kansas City, Chicago, Detroit seems to be favored in for that heavy snow. Indianapolis, according to this model. Cleveland, Columbus, kind of on that straddling line. And Erie, but those amounts are heavy. That could be a system that hasn't occurred here in a few years. And, you know, it's always, even if it did occur last year, it's still something you should prepare for. And notice that southern Canada, a lot of these cities get in on that heavy snow as well. That's many, you know, Toronto right there, 15 inches in terms of centimeters. That's probably over 30, maybe close to 40 centimeters if this scenario were to occur at those exact snowfall ratios, which again, these areas would be a bit colder, so probably a bit more snow. Now, without showing you the exact layout of the system, I'll just switch off to a different model. This is the GFS, the biggest kind of competitor, if you will, of the European model. In terms of accuracy, notice that it's a very similar layout. It's kind of a southwest to northeast, so at least we have that thing good kind of figured out. But there are some differences. Do note that Indianapolis is a bit further out from the snow. We see more cities like Chicago getting in on this, Kansas City. Oklahoma City is just on the southeastern periphery of this snow. That's kind of just to the north and west of you. Again, whether or not this model is more accurate or the European one, it's very hard to say. But because of the trend that we've been seeing with the European model trending towards the general structure of the GFS storm, I would say this model has a slightly better handle on it. Regardless, you could see that the amounts are equally as significant. And with this model, I could assume the Kuchera, which for some of this may be a bit more accurate, and that starts giving us some scary numbers. You could see just Detroit potentially in the 20s. Again, this may be a bit overdone, and I want to caution with that you know, you shouldn't focus specifically on these amounts and be like, oh, if Cleveland isn't forecasted 30 inches of snow, I won't be preparing. 15 or 30 or 10, you should be preparing for a pretty significant, impactful system. Obviously, this is probably worst case scenario for many of these locations, or best case scenario if you love snow. But you can see these are significant amounts, and again, affecting many U.S. cities and Canadian cities alike. And I do want to note, you know, I don't want to be we're just focusing on the rainy side or snowy side of this thing. And there's a rainy side of this thing, which could be dropping a lot of rain for cities like Houston potentially, you know, New Orleans, sorry, Tupelo, Mississippi, northern Mississippi, 3 to 4 inches. And again, this is assuming that it's kind of a broad rain event, but there will be isolated thunderstorms dropping many more inches in some areas and many less in others. So this is arguably more impactful than the nor'easter we had, because the snow amounts are as significant, and there's also a rainy side. While the nor'easter, its rainy side was out into the ocean, not really affecting many folks. So yes, there's a lot of different things with this system. There isn't as strong of a wind threat as there was with that blizzard across the Northeast, but the snow amounts and the rain amounts are a lot more impactful. So let me go back and now show you a Canadian model. So this is a very good model that I like to look at as well. Again, I like to compare the European GFS and Canadian. Usually those are like my go-to models. Again, you can see similar structure, but with the Canadian, it's a bit further towards the south even than the European. So if you recall, the GFS is furthest to the north. That's the second model I showed you. The first one was a bit further towards the north than the Canadian, but further south than the GFS. But then the Canadian is a bit kind of in the middle. And you can see that the snowfall amounts are still significant, especially for the Northeast here into Vermont and New Hampshire, a bit higher than other models show, but a bit lower into these areas. Shows a bit more into Indianapolis, right? Or a bit less maybe into Cleveland, but again, 13 inches, and assuming a more accurate snowfall rate shows that 13 could jump to 18. Again, same amount of precip, it's just that fluffiness, that appearance of the snow, which does make an impact. And I do want to say that there could be decent mountain snow across the Northwest with that first that first clipper, or I guess the first phase of the storm. So that's definitely something to watch for. And notice that cities like Chicago barely get in any snow out of this. A scenario like this, Detroit is on the northern end of this, right? So the Canadian has been consistently a bit more towards the south. But if I take a look at its other model runs, so its older ones, right? We take a look at this because we want to see if there's been a trend. You can see yesterday's midnight model run was more intense with the snow, but generally the track was the same. And yesterday, 24 hours ago, still a pretty more southern scenario. So it hasn't changed that much, but at least it hasn't trended further towards the south by a significant margin. And I say at least, not because I want it to not trend or want it to go to the north or south. It just gives us more confidence if it's a bit more stable and not versus not jumping around all the time. European model, let's compare the snowfall tracks because this is something, you know, super important. So this is the current one with the most recent update of the 12Z European. Yesterday's midnight model run, that's the thing I was talking about. You could see it's a much more broader snow event, and it definitely has trended towards the Canadian and GFS general structure of that storm with that one singular heavy snow band. But you could see it was favoring a more southern track, which this is where the GFS comes in play. The GFS snowfall accumulations were a bit further towards the north, say yesterday at around the same time frame I was recording this video. You could see it was a tad bit towards the north compared to where we are today. It's a bit subtle of a change, but you could see it's definitely a bit towards the south now. And actually with the evening one, it's trended a bit towards the north again, but at noon today, it was a bit further towards the south. So it definitely hasn't trended north. That's my main point. And it has trended slightly towards the European model, not by much, but it has trended. So again, it has kind of agreed with the European that it's a bit further towards the south. But again, the European agreed with the GFS that it's more of a singular band of intense snow rather than this widespread area of weaker to moderate snow. So regardless, you know, if you look at this location, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, all these cities and areas are impacted by this system, regardless of which kind of model you look at. And again, the southern areas are all going to be seeing pretty good rain with this, regardless of which model you look at. And in fact, let me just show you some of this. Total QPF means rainfall, and snowfall, kind of just the liquid. You can see the areas here are getting slammed. Let's take a look at the new update of the GFS. You know, not much has changed. Obviously, individual cities and locations won't be known how much rain that you will get pretty much until the event is over. The exact amounts because of the thunderstorm activity, but prepare for a good soaking. And you can see that the European, compared to midnight, hasn't really changed its thinking. It's a pretty good rain events for most. So just really maybe not for the Carolinas, as this system really kind of skedaddles out of here pretty quickly. So that's that. I do want to show you now the models, the ensembles. So if you recall, I was just showing you GFS, European, and the Canadian. Those are just 3 individual models, but the GFS and the European have their own families. It's like their siblings, and the GFS has 31 siblings. And basically, if we look at all of those models combined with their snowfall put on one map, you get an average of what they all think. Now, this is a great tool when wanting to know whether or not, this thing is more generally kind of shifting towards the south with the models or north, and what the trend is. And there's always that saying in weather, a trend is your friend, because it helps you out knowing what's I guess the recent updates with the system, where it's getting stronger, weaker, more likely, or less likely. It's super important. And notice, this is what the GFS ensembles are showing right now. Notice that the band of snow is a bit more broad than just a singular model, and that's the intent. The further out you are from a system, this band of snow is going to be extremely broad and extremely all over the place. This is what it looked like several days ago. Not only were the mounts lighter, but it was a bit more broad. Today, it has refined that. Obviously, once the actual storm occurs, the snow band won't be probably as significant in terms of its length, because we will get more of a concise development, and it will kind of hone in on that exact track. It won't be so big. In order for me to show you the full beauty of ensembles and their benefits, I need to show you the trend. So let's go back to yesterday midnight. So again, not too far out, but since midnight, there's a lot of things that have changed, or there could be, and in this case, there have been some. Notice, this is what it showed yesterday. Still very good in agreement, and that's why yesterday I said that we had an above average confidence in this system occurring pretty far out, right? I told you this system is guaranteed to occur, except if you live in Chicago, it may not be guaranteed for Europe in particular. It's just that the US and the Canadian areas will get a system. It's just matters of exactly where and who will get the worst. So you could see that this is the exact track yesterday that the ensembles kind of thought, the average of them. Let me take a look at today in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Notice any differences? There are, in terms of track, not so much, but they basically increased the amounts. There's more pink. So basically, they're gaining confidence that this thing will be a beast. In terms of track, there hasn't been that much of a change, which is actually good news, because that means that the models are less likely to throw us a curveball last second and, prompting the National Weather Service to issue winter storm warnings for areas that weren't expecting any. It's always the worst when that happens. Notice, today at noon, do you see any difference? It's shifted a bit towards the south. It's just by a hair, but it's a bit towards the south with the noon model run. And the amounts are still very heavy wherever it does occur, and actually they increased it into southern Canada. You can see by quite a bit. The morning, the amounts were a lot in the purple, and now by noon, it was a bit more in the pink. Again, the track hasn't shifted by a lot, but it's showing us that, again, that the confidence is a bit higher. But then, today in the evening, we have the newest model run. You can see those amounts are growing even more. We are now starting to see a consensus of bright pink, which is really a foot, half, even 2 feet. And again, it's a slight northern trend, so just a slight one, but it puts cities like Indianapolis, right, Detroit, Kansas City, St. Louis, right in the crosshairs of a beast. Toledo, Ohio. I mean, just getting clobbered by a scenario like this. And of course, a lot of the southern Canadian cities as well, especially areas like Toronto, closer towards, I guess, the center of it, where it begins, which is Oklahoma, the Oklahoma area. And notice, Oklahoma City, your ensemble average is showing close to a foot of snow. So again, that's the GFS. And now, this is a lot of weather talk, a lot of comparing, and this is why making a 3-minute video is impossible. I mean, if you're still watching it, the video at this point, thank you so much, for one. But also, you realize how much stuff I've covered, and kind of hopefully gave you a better understanding of why this is so requiring a lengthy in terms of time to demonstrate. And this is another ensemble family. So I showed you the GFS model and its family. Now I'm going to show you the European. I showed you the European model, but now I'm going to show you its family. This one has a bit of a narrower track. Notice it has 51 members, by the way, so it's a bit of a larger family, right? So it gives us, I guess, a better scope of possibilities. Do note that the amounts are still, again, very potent and very high. It only comes out twice a day, the European ensembles, compared to the GFS that comes out 4 times a day. So let's go back 24 hours ago and see what has changed. So this is what it showed yesterday. You could still see that it showed the remnants of that old storm that has now been gone. gone, or is gone. Yesterday, obviously, a few things to notice. The track was a lot more broader, and the snow amounts were a bit lighter. Yesterday at midnight, or today at midnight, the second continuous model run, there was a southern shift. Again, the amounts slightly increased, but not a lot. And then today at noon, there was a bit of a northern shift, and that amount significantly increased. You could see right there. So the European, again, trended more towards what the GFS is showing. And again, the track has been relatively consistent. So at this point, if you're wondering, what city, what state may get the heaviest snow, put it in the comments down below. And I at this point, I can start giving you broad accumulation totals, or what may be coming. So, feel free to do that down below. Now, again, there aren't any advisories, warnings yet. I want to time this out for you quickly. So if you're still watching this, let's just use the GFS, because in terms of timing, most models are agreeing on the general timing of this. So I could show you. Again, Northwest, it's today into tomorrow. By tomorrow, late in the afternoon, it's pretty much done, other than some high mountain snow and some lighter snow showers. Again, that winter storm watch that is issued, that will be occurring, if it does, on late Monday into early Tuesday. Again, still good for the Midwest, or the southern central kind of, I guess, the heart of the country. Right now, notice Tuesday, 12 p.m., we start seeing some rain. So it's still not significant, but if you're sitting in St. Louis, Missouri, Illinois, wherever, you might expect some rain showers. Again, rain. It will start off as rain for many. Then we see this intensify. So you probably see the showers now becoming more intense, maybe develop into steady rainfall. And then by Tuesday, 12 a.m., so if you're still awake, in cities like Chicago, just north of Detroit, central Illinois, Kansas City, Wichita, Topeka, Kansas, Colorado, you start seeing snowfall. So this is late Tuesday, early Wednesday. Now, throughout the day on Wednesday, this thing continues growing in strength. So similar areas, except more are getting absorbed into this. Detroit, now a lot of, Mississippi is under some rain. Tennessee, we see the backside of the system filling in. And we start seeing cities like Toronto, Ontario, Montreal, starting to get in on the snow by Wednesday. So again, not too terribly far out. This is Sunday, and this will start occurring Wednesday. So, and then you could see that Wednesday, we start seeing some ice potential starting to develop across Oklahoma and Illinois. And, Wednesday will probably be the worst day, whereas Thursday will be also very bad, but it'll start abating some of these areas. And what abating is basically, leaving them. Notice that we start seeing precip amounts really intensify across Oklahoma, Missouri by late Wednesday into early Thursday. Still snowing potentially, according to the GFS, across Chicago, Detroit, Toronto, Montreal, Cleveland, Erie potentially. And you can see even snow back into New Mexico. This GFS really advertises quite a bit of a snowstorm and ice storm for Texas, Dallas. If this scenario were to come true, this would be a nightmare, but it's definitely a potential. Notice Arkansas, Little Rock, not so much of the wintry precip, but more rain. Notice this thing starts shifting, and by early Thursday and late Thursday, kind of throughout the day, it's affecting many cities with snow, rain, ice. It starts shifting a lot of the ice into maybe Arkansas. The earlier we're seeing some rain, rain, and then notice a lot more rain, a lot more precip, now quickly shifting towards the north and east. And by late Thursday into early Friday, it's already a lot better for these areas. They're, I guess, digging out or getting rid of whatever the system left behind. And it's starting to affect more of the northeast and southern United States with that rain, potentially severe weather, a bit of snow. And you could see it's also very impactful. Pittsburgh, potentially West Virginia. And then this thing it's out of here by pretty much Friday, late in the evening, midnight. But yeah, this thing starts literally Tuesday and exits Friday. So again, the GFS shows quite a swath of heavy snow, potentially even 20+ inches. All right, that is basically it for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. This is a legendary event potentially. So, it's a long video, but hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you are a bit more prepared or aware of what's to come, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. Thank you guys. It's always my pleasure to keep you informed.